Hello everyone, my name is Munesah and I will be presenting my findings from my summer project on the changes in students' written communication of strategies and challenges with iterative board gameplay. This project is a part of Dr. Francis's larger design-based research study looking at the intersection of logical and spatial reasoning through iterative board gameplay. So spatial reasoning is thinking about objects in 3 dimensions, whereas logical and mathematical reasoning refer to critical thinking and working through a set of rules that govern a scenario. And mathematical communication is communication in relation to mathematics. So research shows us that spatial and logical reasoning are strong markers for success in STEM disciplines, which is why many organizations are pushing for the explicit teachings of this type of reasoning in our curriculum, as our current curriculum does not support the types of critical thinking and problem solving needed in today's world. As well, research shows us that logical, spatial, and mathematical reasoning are closely related. However, the exact intersection is unclear, as well as the best ways in which we can implement this into our classrooms. Finally, research shows us that reasoning can be improved in students through the use of mathematical communication. However, again, there is little research showing the intersection between this and board game play. Therefore, we wanted to look at whether or not we could use board games as a way to improve reasoning through mathematical communication. So from this, we had 2 questions that arose. Firstly, we wanted to investigate whether sophistication of communication of spatial and logical reasoning could improve through board game play. From this came a sub-question where we not only wanted to look at what the students were discussing, but how they were discussing their use of this type of reasoning. So we collected data in the classroom of 2 grade 6 classes where we played 4 games for a total of 4 times each. So to start, classroom teachers had the students fill out pre-game reflections, and then every week for 4 weeks we would come in and play board games with the students that were pre-selected to support spatial and logical reasoning. After each gameplay, the students would fill out a reflection sheet, as well as at the end of the 4 weeks for each game, they filled out a post-game reflection. So this gave us plenty of data to analyze their written communication. So the data was entered into in vivo and coded using a priori and open coding methods. Mentions were coded based on the content. So for example, describing strategies or challenges, and then again coded for how generic or specific the language was. From this qualitative analysis, we found that there was an increase in use of spatial and logical reasoning terms, and that there was also an observed increase in sophistication through the use of compound sentences, increased word count, conjunction use, and more detail and complete thought. The number of generic and specific mentions were entered into SPSS, and a chi-squared test for proportions was completed, where we found a statistically significant increase in specific mentions. So we have our chi-squared table here used to reject the null hypothesis that there was no significant difference between the games in the frequency of specific and generic mentions. On the other hand, we have a good example of a generic versus specific mention. So in the generic mention, the student does not provide much detail or reasoning behind their thought, whereas by game 4, there is a significant increase in detail and the student clearly outlines the reasoning behind their answer. To conclude, we found that board games are definitely a way to introduce non-traditional math problems into the classroom as a means of supporting logical and spatial reasoning development. By incorporating literacy into mathematics, we see an organic development of the ability to communicate reasoning and thought through iterative gameplay that supports logical and spatial reasoning. So what that means is that we can in fact introduce games into the classroom as a means of increasing reasoning. The study is limited in that we were only able to analyze written communication as opposed to oral, and we did not factor in confidence and familiarity when looking at an increase in sophistication of reasoning of gameplay. However, we are redoing this study, so these are definitely things that we will be considering for next time. So to conclude, I wanted to thank the students and the teachers involved, as well as Dr. Francis, without whom this project would not have been possible. And thank you all so much for listening.